In the vast expanse of the galaxy, where empires span thousands of star systems and alien civilizations have flourished for millennia, there exists a universal truth that every species learns the hard way: never underestimate humanity. They call us the Silent Death in the Outer Rim territories, the Ghost Makers in the corporate sectors, the Voidwalkers in the religious communes. But, perhaps the most telling name comes from the Zephyrian Empire's own intelligence files, where humans are classified under a single, chilling designation: apex predator. Approach with extreme caution. What they don't understand, what none of them truly grasp, is that these aren't just military classifications. They're survival warnings. Because when a human says they'll keep you safe, they don't just mean from external threats. They mean from everything, including themselves. And, in a universe where the greatest predators often wear the most innocent faces, sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is ask a human for protection. Princess Lyra Teal of the Valtorian dynasty was about to learn this lesson in the most intimate way possible. She thought she was hiring a bodyguard. What she actually did was wake something that the galaxy had spent centuries trying to keep buried. This is the story of what happens when an alien princess, fleeing from an intergalactic conspiracy that threatens to destroy everything she holds dear, places her trust in the one species that every government, every military, and every intelligence agency has learned to fear. This is the story of humanity's true nature, and why some truths are better left buried in the void between stars. The neon lights of Nexus Station cast everything in sickly purples and greens, making even the most innocent faces look sinister in the artificial twilight. Princess Lyra Teal pulled her hood lower as she navigated through the crowded marketplace, her 3 hearts beating an increasingly frantic rhythm against her ribs. Behind her, somewhere in the maze of vendors selling questionable cybernetics and black market weapons, the consortium's hunters were closing in. She could feel their presence like ice water in her veins. The Valtorian gift of empathic sensing, usually a blessing that allowed her people to read emotions across species barriers, had become a curse in the past 72 hours. Every malevolent thought, every predatory intention, every mercenary's cold calculation hit her like physical blows. The hunters weren't just after her for the bounty anymore. They wanted to make her suffer first. The data chip hidden in her neural implant contained enough evidence to topple 3 galactic governments and expose the shadow war that had been raging for decades. The consortium had killed her father, destroyed her homeworld's defensive fleet, and murdered anyone who might have protected her. Now they wanted the chip, and they wanted her dead. Not necessarily in that order. Acrylian bounty hunter's thoughts brushed against her mind images of torture, of slow dismemberment, of selling her piece by piece to the highest bidder. Lyra Teal stumbled, nearly dropping the small plasma pistol hidden in her robes. She wasn't a warrior. She was a diplomat, trained in languages and cultural exchange, not combat. The weapon felt alien in her delicate 6-fingered hands. That's when she saw him. He sat alone at a corner table in one of the station's seedier taverns, nursing what looked like genuine Earth whiskey, an impossibly expensive luxury this far from Sol System. Everything about him screamed danger, from the way he held himself perfectly still while constantly watching every entrance, to the subtle bulges in his jacket that suggested weapons she couldn't even identify. His species was immediately recognizable, even though she'd never seen one in person. Human. The stories about his people were legend throughout the galaxy. They had appeared on the galactic stage barely 2 centuries ago, emerging from a small blue world that most spacefaring civilizations had dismissed as unremarkable. Within 50 years, they had gone from primitive space explorers to the most feared military force in known space. Not because of superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but because of something far more terrifying. Humans, it turned out, were very good at killing things. The siege of Kepler 442b had proven that. When the hegemony had tried to claim the human colony world, expecting easy conquest of what their intelligence suggested was a peaceful farming settlement, they had instead walked into something that military historians now called the perfect demonstration of human warfare. 30,000 hegemony soldiers had landed. 17 had made it back to their ships, and only because the humans had let them go to spread the word. The survivors told stories that no one wanted to believe. Of farmers who fought like military special forces.
At dawn. Prepare the legions.
Of children who could set traps that killed trained soldiers. Of humans who could track enemies across continents and strike from distances that should have been impossible. The most disturbing report spoke of humans who seemed to enjoy the hunt, who treated warfare not as a necessity but as an art form they had been perfecting for millennia. But it wasn't just their military capabilities that made humans dangerous. It was their psychology. Most species fought for territory, resources, or survival. Humans fought for principles, for abstract concepts, for people they had never met. They would die for ideas, and kill for loyalty. This made them unpredictable, which made them terrifying. The human at the corner table looked up as she approached, and Lyra Teal felt her breath catch. His eyes were a deep blue-green that reminded her of the ocean depths on her homeworld, but there was something predatory in the way they tracked her movement. He was evaluating her, she realized. Not just looking at her, but cataloging every detail, her gait, her posture, her breathing patterns, the way she held her concealed weapon. "You're being hunted," he said without preamble as she stopped beside his table. His voice was deep, with the flat accent that most humans seem to share. 7 different heat signatures following your path through the market. 2 Krillians, 3 Centaurians, and 2 I can't identify from here. Professional-grade augmentations on at least 4 of them. Lyra Teal stared at him in shock. She hadn't told him anything about her situation, and she was certain her empathic shielding was holding. How had he known? "I can smell the fear pheromones," he explained, apparently reading her confusion. "And the way you keep checking escape routes while trying not to look like you're checking escape routes is a pretty clear tell. Plus, there's a 50,000 credit bounty notice for a Valtorian female matching your description circulating on the local nets." 50,000 credits. That was more money than most people saw in their lifetimes. No wonder she had so many hunters on her trail. "Sit down," the human said, nudging a chair toward her with his boot. "Standing there like that makes you more visible." She hesitated. Every story about humans contained warnings about trusting them. They were loyal to their own kind, but outsiders were often viewed with suspicion or outright hostility. Some species whispered that humans saw all other intelligent life as potential threats to be monitored or eliminated. But she was running out of options. The consortium's reach extended to every legitimate security service in this sector, and most of the illegitimate ones as well. She needed someone outside their influence, someone they couldn't buy or intimidate. Someone dangerous enough to give even professional killers pause. She sat down, pulling her hood back slightly so he could see her face. His expression didn't change, but she caught a flicker of something in his thoughts, surprise, maybe. Recognition, definitely. "Princess Lyra Teal of the Valtorian dynasty," he said, and it wasn't a question. "The consortium has been very busy spreading the word that you're a terrorist who destroyed your own people's defensive fleet." "That's a lie," she said quickly. "I have proof that," he held up a hand, stopping her. "I don't care about galactic politics. I care about credits and keeping myself breathing. The question is, what are you offering?" Lyra Teal reached into her robes carefully, noting how his posture shifted almost imperceptibly as she did so. Even sitting relaxed, he was ready to move, ready to fight. She pulled out a credit chip and set it on the table. 100,000 credits, she said. "Transferred to your account the moment you get me safely off this station." He picked up the chip, examining it with what looked like a small scanner built into his fingertip. The casual display of cybernetic enhancement made her nervous. How much of him was still organic? "This is real money," he said finally. "Valtorian Royal Treasury authorization codes. Which means you really are who you say you are." He set the chip back down and leaned back in his chair. 100,000 credits is enough to buy you transport off the station and maybe a few days of protection. But you're not just running from station security or local criminals. The consortium wants you dead. That's a different level of problem. "What would it take?" she asked, hating how desperate she sounded. He was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer, almost gentle. "Tell me what really happened to your homeworld, princess." The kindness in his tone nearly broke her composure. For the first time in 3 days, someone was looking at her like she was a person instead of a target or a prize. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. The consortium has been manipulating galactic politics for decades, she said. They've been starting wars, toppling governments, eliminating anyone who might threaten their power. My father discovered their involvement in the Rigel conflict, the Centauri trade wars, even the hegemony expansion. He was going to expose them to the Galactic Council. So they killed him. They made it look like a terrorist attack. Blamed it on the separatist movement. But I have the real records, the communication logs, the financial transfers. Everything. She touched her temple where the neural implant was hidden. They tried to delete the files from our government databases, but my father had already transferred copies to my personal storage. They don't know I have them. But they suspect. They know I was in the palace when it happened. They know I might have access to sensitive information. So they're eliminating all potential leaks. Her voice cracked slightly. I'm not the only one. They've killed my father's advisors, his security chief, even the servants who might have overheard something. I'm just the last one left. The human was quiet again, his expression unreadable. Around them, the tavern's normal sounds continued, conversations in a dozen different languages, the clink of glasses, the electronic beeping of gaming machines. But Lyra Teal felt like they were sitting in a bubble of silence. The consortium has resources, he said finally. Military contracts, political connections, access to the best mercenaries money can buy. If they want you dead, they'll keep coming until the job is done. Running isn't a solution. It's just delaying the inevitable. Her heart sank. She had hoped that a human's reputation for ruthless efficiency might be enough to deter the consortium's hunters, but if even he thought the situation was hopeless. However, he continued, and she looked up sharply. There might be another option. What do you mean? The consortium relies on fear and intimidation. They maintain power by convincing people that resistance is futile. But they've never dealt with humans before, have they? No. Your people have stayed mostly isolated in your own territory. Why? He smiled, and, for the first time, Lyra Teal understood why other species found humans so unsettling. There was something predatory in that expression, something that spoke of violence and patience in equal measure. Because we've been watching, he said. Learning. Preparing. The consortium thinks they understand the galactic balance of power, but they've made a critical error in their calculations. What kind of error? They've assumed that humans think like other species. That we'll be reasonable, predictable, willing to negotiate. They don't understand that when you threaten something we've decided to protect, we don't just fight back. We eliminate the threat entirely. The way he said it sent chills down her spine. She had heard the stories about human warfare, but this felt different. More personal. Are you saying you'll help me? I'm saying I'll keep you safe, he replied. But understand what that means. If I take this job, the consortium becomes my enemy. And, when humans identify an enemy, we don't just defeat them. We make sure they can never threaten anyone again. She stared at him, suddenly, understanding the warning in the stories she had heard. Humans didn't just fight wars. They ended them. Permanently. What's your name? She asked. Marcus Chen. Former Earth Defense Force, currently freelance security specialist. He picked up her credit chip again. And if you hire me, Princess, you need to understand something important. What? The consortium has spent decades building their power base through careful manipulation and strategic violence. They think they're apex predators in the galactic ecosystem. His smile turned cold. They're about to learn what real apex predators look like. Outside the tavern, Lyra Teal could feel the hunters closing in. Their thoughts were focused now, determined. They had tracked her to this location, and they were preparing to move in for the capture. Time was running out. Will you keep me safe, human? She pleaded, not caring how desperate she sounded. Marcus Chen finished his whiskey and stood up, his movements fluid and controlled. Yes, he said simply. But, Princess, you should know something about humans before we begin. What? We're very good at keeping our promises. Sometimes that scares people more than the alternative. As he said it, the tavern's lights dimmed slightly, and Lyratiel realized that several other patrons had quietly stood up as well. They didn't look like typical mercenaries or station security. They looked like Marcus's calm, controlled, and absolutely lethal. "Friends of yours?" she asked. "Professional colleagues," he replied. "Turns out the consortium made a mistake when they put that bounty on your head. They advertised their interest in you to every information broker in the sector, including some that work for Earth Intelligence." "Earth Intelligence?" "We've been tracking consortium activities for months, Princess. You just became our best lead to their command structure." He gestured toward the exit. "Shall we go? Your hunters are about to discover why humans don't make good prey." As they moved toward the back exit, Lyratiel caught a glimpse of the Krillian bounty hunter who had been tracking her. He was approaching the tavern's main entrance with his team, weapons ready, confident in their numerical advantage. She almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Because as Marcus Chen had just taught her, when humans decide to protect something, they don't just fight for it. They hunt down anything that threatens it. And the consortium had just painted the largest target in the galaxy on their own backs. The real hunt was about to begin. And, for the first time in days, Lyratiel wasn't the prey. The service corridor behind the tavern was dimly lit and narrow, designed for maintenance workers rather than foot traffic. Marcus moved through it like he had studied the station's blueprints for years, which Lyratiel was beginning to suspect he probably had. The three other humans who had joined them moved with the same fluid confidence, their coordination so seamless it was almost supernatural. "How long have you been watching me?" she asked as they navigated through a maze of pipes and electrical conduits. "Since you arrived on the station 18 hours ago," replied the woman to Marcus's left. She was smaller than the others, with short dark hair and cybernetic eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. "I'm Lieutenant Sarah Kim, Earth Intelligence. We've been monitoring consortium activities in this sector." "You're spies." "We're researchers," Marcus corrected. "The consortium has been very careful to avoid direct confrontation with human territories, but their operations affect galactic stability. Earth government takes a dim view of organizations that destabilize our trade routes." They paused at an intersection of corridors while one of the other humans, a tall man with intricate tattoos covering his arms, checked something on a handheld scanner. His movements were precise and economical, like a machine designed for a specific purpose. "Clear ahead," he reported. "But we've got movement in the main corridors. Looks like your friends brought reinforcements." Through the thin walls, Lyratiel could hear the distant sounds of commotion from the tavern area. Shouting voices, the distinctive whine of energy weapons charging, the crash of furniture being overturned. The bounty hunters had arrived to find their target missing and were not taking it well. "They're going to tear the station apart looking for us," she said. "Let them," Marcus replied. "Station security will handle the disturbance. Meanwhile, we'll be long gone." "Where are we going?" "Docking Bay 12. We have a ship waiting." He glanced at her as they resumed moving. "I should mention that this rescue operation has been upgraded from a simple security contract to a joint intelligence mission. Earth government has officially requested your cooperation with our investigation into consortium activities." Lyratiel felt a chill that had nothing to do with the corridor's temperature. "What kind of cooperation?" "Full access to the data you're carrying," Lieutenant Kim said. "In exchange, we provide complete protection from consortium retaliation and assistance in exposing their operations to the Galactic Council." "And if I refuse?" The humans exchanged glances that somehow conveyed volumes of information. It was Marcus who answered, his voice carefully neutral. "Then, we deliver you safely to the destination of your choice and wish you luck. But, Princess, understand that the consortium won't stop coming. They can't afford to let you live, not when you have proof of their operations. Eventually, they'll find you." "But, if I cooperate with Earth Intelligence?" "Then, the consortium becomes our problem," the tattooed man said. His voice carried a slight accent she couldn't place. "And we're very good at solving problems permanently." They reached a maintenance hatch that opened onto one of the station's main thoroughfares. Lieutenant Kim produced a small device that she attached to the hatch controls, causing them to cycle open without triggering any security alarms. The casual display of technological superiority was unsettling. How long had humans been operating on Nexus Station without anyone realizing it? The thoroughfare beyond was crowded with the usual mix of traders, travelers, and questionable characters that populated the neutral zone stations. Marcus gestured for her to stay close as they blended into the crowd, moving with purposeful efficiency toward the docking section. "There," Kim said quietly, nodding toward a group of heavily armed figures near the central security station. "Centaurian military contractors. Expensive ones." Lyra Teal followed her gaze and felt her empathic senses recoil from the cold professionalism radiating from the mercenaries. These weren't just bounty hunters looking for easy money. They were killers, trained and equipped for serious warfare. "The consortium is escalating," Marcus observed. "Military contractors suggest they're willing to risk open conflict to acquire you." "Is that bad? For them?" "Yes." The tattooed man smiled, and Lyra Teal was reminded again why humans had such a terrifying reputation. Hiring military contractors to operate on a neutral station violates about 12 different galactic treaties. Gives us legal justification for direct intervention. Direct intervention meaning what, exactly? Meaning the consortium just gave Earth government grounds to declare them a hostile organization, Kim explained. Which means Earth Defense Force gets involved. Which means this stops being a covert intelligence operation and becomes a military action. The implications hit Lyra Teal like a physical blow. She had been trying to avoid starting a war, and instead had apparently just triggered one. The data she carried was important, but was it worth risking galactic conflict? "You're overthinking this, Princess," Marcus said, apparently reading her expression. "The consortium started this war decades ago. They just managed to keep it hidden. What you represent is the end of their ability to operate in the shadows. But the casualties will be minimal," the fourth human spoke for the first time. He was older than the others, with gray hair and scars that suggested extensive combat experience. "The consortium relies on deception and manipulation. Remove those advantages, and they're just another criminal organization with delusions of grandeur." "Commander Jackson," Kim said by way of introduction. He ran the strategic planning for the Kepler 442b defense. Lyra Teal stared at him with new understanding. This was the man who had orchestrated the defeat of 30,000 hegemony soldiers with a handful of colonists. The tactical genius whose strategies had become required study material in military academies across the galaxy. "The consortium made the same mistake the hegemony did," Jackson continued as they walked. "They assumed that superior resources guaranteed victory. They've forgotten that wars are won by superior planning, not superior firepower. And humans are good at planning? We've been practicing warfare for our entire evolutionary history, Princess. Most species developed intelligence to solve environmental challenges or facilitate cooperation. Humans developed intelligence to kill each other more efficiently. It's made us very good at strategic thinking." They passed another group of security personnel, station guards this time, looking nervous and aggressive as they searched through the crowds. The manhunt was expanding, becoming more desperate and less subtle. "They're getting sloppy," Marcus noted. "Desperation makes people predictable." "Predictable how?" "They'll focus their search on the obvious escape routes. Official transport vessels, private shuttles, anything that looks like a quick way off the station. They won't waste resources on cargo haulers or maintenance craft. Which is what we're using." "Something like that." He smiled mysteriously. They reached the docking bay access without further incident, though Lyra Teal could feel the increasing tension throughout the station. The bounty hunters and mercenaries weren't just searching anymore, they were starting to panic. The consortium's timeline was clearly accelerating, which suggested something had changed in the larger situation. "Why are they so desperate?" she asked as they approached the docking bay entrance. "I mean, yes, the data I have is damaging, but they've survived scandals before." "Because this isn't just about scandal," Kim replied. "According to our intelligence, the consortium is planning something major." Something that requires absolute secrecy to succeed. Your data doesn't just expose their past crimes, it reveals their future plans. What kind of plans? The kind that would destabilize half the galaxy if they succeeded, Jackson said grimly. Military coup, economic manipulation, political assassination. They're planning to seize control of the Galactic Council itself. The docking bay was a vast cavern filled with ships of every size and configuration imaginable. Sleek passenger liners sat next to massive cargo haulers, while personal shuttles and military vessels filled the smaller berths. The air was thick with the smell of fuel and ozone from the docking systems. Marcus led them toward a section filled with older, less impressive vessels. Industrial cargo ships, asteroid miners, and other working craft that wouldn't attract attention from casual observers. There, he said, pointing to what looked like a standard medium-range cargo hauler. The Wanderer. Our ride home. Lyra Teal studied the vessel with growing concern. It looked like it had seen better decades, with worn hull plating and modifications that suggested a long history of jury-rig repairs. This was what Earth intelligence used for clandestine operations. Appearances can be deceiving, Princess, Jackson said, apparently noticing her expression. The Wanderer is considerably more than she appears to be. As they approached the ship, Lyra Teal began to understand what he meant. Despite its aged exterior, the cargo hauler moved with the subtle grace of a much more sophisticated vessel. The docking systems engaged with silent precision, and she could see glimpses of military-grade equipment hidden beneath seemingly civilian modifications. She's a wolf in sheep's clothing, Marcus explained. Registered as an independent cargo vessel, but actually an Earth intelligence deep-cover platform. Full military armament, advanced sensors, and enough speed to outrun anything the consortium can field. The airlock cycled open, revealing an interior that was definitely not standard cargo hauler configuration. The corridors were clean and efficient, with the subtle indicators of advanced technology integrated throughout. This was a warship masquerading as a civilian vessel. "Welcome aboard the Wanderer, Princess," Kim said as they made their way to what appeared to be a passenger cabin. "Make yourself comfortable. We'll be departing as soon as the docking systems clear us for launch." The cabin was small but well-appointed, with security features that made it clear this ship had been designed for transporting high-value passengers. Lyra Teal sat on the narrow bunk and tried to process everything that had happened in the past few hours. She had come to Nexus Station hoping to hire a bodyguard who could get her safely to neutral territory where she could reveal the consortium's crimes to the galaxy. Instead, she had apparently triggered a military operation that might lead to open warfare between Earth and one of the most powerful criminal organizations in known space. "Second thoughts?" Marcus asked from the doorway. "Third and fourth thoughts," she admitted. "I wanted to stop the consortium, not start a war." "Sometimes those are the same thing." He entered the cabin and sat across from her. "Princess, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "What did you think would happen when you revealed the consortium's crimes? Did you imagine they would simply accept exposure and surrender peacefully?" She was quiet for a moment, considering the question. "I suppose I hoped the Galactic Council would act. Impose sanctions, freeze their assets, arrest their leadership." "Through what mechanism?" "The consortium has infiltrated or corrupted most of the Council's enforcement agencies. They own judges, military commanders, even council members themselves. The system can't police itself when the police are part of the problem. So what's the alternative? External pressure. An outside force that can't be bought or intimidated." He leaned forward slightly. "The consortium has spent decades making sure they were the most dangerous predators in their environment. They never considered that they weren't alone in the galaxy." "You're talking about conquest." "I'm talking about justice. There's a difference, even if the end result looks similar." Through the cabin's small viewport, Lyra Teal could see the docking bay's activity continuing normally. Cargo being loaded, passengers boarding shuttles, maintenance crews servicing vessels. The ordinary business of galactic civilization, all of it made possible by the assumption that certain basic rules would be followed. The consortium had broken those rules. And now humanity was going to enforce them. "Marcus," she said finally. When you said you would keep me safe, did you mean safe from the consortium? Or safe from you? He was quiet for a long moment, and, when he finally answered, his voice was softer than before. Princess, understand something about humans. We don't make casual promises. When we say we'll protect someone, it becomes a matter of honor. And humans will do terrible things to preserve their honor. That's not really an answer. It's the only answer I can give you right now. He stood up as the ship's systems hummed to life around them. But, I will say this, as long as you're under my protection, nothing in this galaxy will be allowed to harm you. That's a promise. Whether it should scare you or comfort you is up to you. As the Wanderer lifted off from Nexus Station, beginning what Lyra Teal suspected would be a journey that changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever, she realized that Marcus Chen had already answered her question. She just wasn't sure she understood what the answer meant yet. 3 days into their journey through hyperspace, Lyra Teal was beginning to understand that the Wanderer was not just a disguised warship, it was a mobile command center for what appeared to be a much larger operation. The ship's communication arrays never stopped working, receiving and transmitting encrypted data streams to destinations throughout the galaxy. Marcus and his team maintained constant contact with other Earth intelligence assets, coordinating what was clearly a complex multi-phase plan. She had been given access to the ship's common areas and a small observation deck, but certain sections remained off-limits. Military protocol, Jackson had explained, though she suspected the real reason was more sensitive. Whatever Earth intelligence was planning, they weren't ready to share the full scope with their Valtorian passenger. You're worried, Marcus observed, finding her in the observation deck as she watched the strange patterns of hyperspace flow past the reinforced viewport. Shouldn't I be? Every update you receive seems to make the situation more complicated. He settled into the chair beside hers, holding 2 cups of what she had learned was genuine Earth coffee, another impossibly expensive luxury that somehow seemed standard aboard this supposedly civilian cargo vessel. The consortium has responded faster than we anticipated, he admitted. They've activated sleeper assets throughout the sector, called in favors from military commanders we didn't even know they owned. The scope of their infiltration is impressive. How impressive? They have sitting council members on their payroll. Military officers in charge of entire fleets. Corporate executives who control the supply chains for dozens of worlds. Marcus sipped his coffee thoughtfully. If we had tried to work through official channels, they would have known every move before we made it. Lyra Teal felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's environmental systems. They've corrupted the entire galactic government. Not the entire government. Just enough of it to control the outcome of any investigation or legal action. He turned to face her directly. Princess, the data you're carrying doesn't just prove individual crimes. It reveals the existence of a shadow government that's been manipulating galactic politics for decades. Which is why they're willing to risk open war to stop me. Which is why this was always going to end in open war, regardless of what you chose to do. The only question was whether the war would happen on their terms or ours. Through her empathic senses, Lyra Teal could feel the intensity of his conviction. Marcus Chen believed absolutely in what he was saying, but there was something else underneath, a cold satisfaction that troubled her more than the growing conflict. You're enjoying this, she said suddenly. The prospect of war with the consortium. You actually want to fight them. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, and, when he finally answered, his voice carried a weight that spoke of experiences she couldn't imagine. Princess, do you know what humans did before we reached the stars? Your history mentions various conflicts, wars, he interrupted. Constant, endless wars. For territory, for resources, for ideological principles, sometimes just because we forgot why we started fighting in the first place. Humans spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing other humans. That's why other species fear you. That's part of it. But, here's what most species don't understand, we got very good at it because we had to. Earth isn't a gentle world, princess. It doesn't hand out survival to creatures that can't take it by force. We evolved as persistence hunters, social predators who could coordinate complex attacks over extended periods of time. Violence isn't just something we're capable of, it's something we're designed for. The casual way he discussed his species' predatory nature made Lyra Teal deeply uncomfortable. Among the Voltorians, violence was considered a last resort, a failure of diplomacy and understanding. The idea of a species that had evolved specifically for warfare was profoundly disturbing. But, you've moved beyond that, she said hopefully. Humans have built a peaceful civilization. We've built a disciplined civilization, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. We've learned to channel our aggressive instincts into productive activities, exploration, scientific research, economic competition. But, the underlying nature is still there. Still waiting. Waiting for what? For something worth fighting for. He smiled, and, once again she saw that predatory gleam that made her instinctively want to retreat. The consortium has given us that something, Princess. They've threatened galactic stability, corrupted legitimate governments, and targeted an innocent person who came to us for protection. From a human perspective, that makes them an enemy that needs to be eliminated. Eliminated. Not defeated. Defeated enemies can regroup, rebuild, return for revenge. Eliminated enemies can't threaten anyone ever again. Marcus finished his coffee and set the cup aside. The consortium made the mistake of thinking they could intimidate us the way they intimidate other species. They're about to learn why that was a critical error in judgment. Lieutenant Kim appeared in the observation deck's doorway, her expression serious. Marcus, we're receiving priority communications from Earth Command. Admiral Reeves wants to speak with you and the Princess immediately. They made their way to the ship's communications center, a sophisticated facility that rivaled anything Lyra Teal had seen on military vessels. The main display activated to show a stern-faced human in military uniform, his cybernetic eye replacements glowing softly as he reviewed data streams. Admiral, Marcus said, coming to attention in a way that made clear the military hierarchy was still very much in effect despite his civilian contractor status. Marcus. Princess. The Admiral's attention shifted to Lyra Teal with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. Your Highness, Earth Intelligence has completed preliminary analysis of the intelligence you've provided. The situation is considerably worse than our initial assessments suggested. How much worse? She asked. The consortium isn't just planning to influence the Galactic Council. They're planning to replace it entirely. Military coup, coordinated across 17 different star systems simultaneously. They intend to install their own government with themselves as the ruling council. The magnitude of the revelation hit Lyra Teal like a physical blow. The consortium wasn't just a criminal organization, they were planning to overthrow galactic civilization itself. The timeline? Marcus asked. 6 weeks. Maybe less. They've been positioning assets for months, waiting for the right moment to strike. Your escape from Nexus Station accelerated their timeline, but it's also given us advance warning. The Admiral's expression became even more grim. Princess, the data you recovered indicates that your father discovered this plan weeks before his assassination. That's why they moved against him so quickly. He was trying to warn the Council, she whispered. He was trying to save galactic civilization, the Admiral corrected. And, now that responsibility has fallen to you. To me? I'm not a military commander or a political leader. You're the only person outside the consortium who has complete documentation of their plans, Marcus interrupted gently. Which makes you either the key to stopping them, or their most important target. Both, the Admiral said firmly. Which is why Earth government is implementing Protocol 7. Kim and Jackson exchanged glances that conveyed more information than words could. Whatever Protocol 7 was, it clearly represented a significant escalation. Sir, Kim said carefully, are you certain the situation warrants full activation? The consortium has corrupted approximately 40% of the Galactic Council's security apparatus and has military assets positioned to strike at civilian targets throughout the sector. Yes, Lieutenant, I'm certain. Marcus turned to Lyra Teal with an expression that somehow managed to be both apologetic and determined. Princess, I need to explain what Protocol 7 means. It means Earth is declaring war on the consortium, she said. It wasn't really a question. It means Earth is declaring the consortium to be an existential threat to galactic stability, the Admiral corrected. which authorizes the use of any means necessary to eliminate that threat. This is no longer a covert intelligence operation, Your Highness. This is now a military action with the full backing of Earth government. What does that mean for me? It means you're now under the protection of the Earth Defense Force, Marcus said. Complete protection. No matter what it costs, no matter what we have to do, nothing will be allowed to harm you. And, what about everyone else? What about the casualties when this war starts? The Admiral was quiet for a moment before answering. Princess, understand something about human military doctrine. When we identify a threat to galactic stability, we don't fight limited wars with acceptable casualty rates. We fight total wars with the goal of permanent resolution. You're talking about genocide. We're talking about the complete dismantling of an organization that represents a clear and present danger to billions of innocent people, Marcus said firmly. The consortium's plans would result in massive civilian casualties and the collapse of legitimate government throughout the sector. We're not starting a war, Princess. We're ending one that's been going on for decades. Through the ship's communication arrays, data continued to stream in from across the galaxy. Reports of consortium assets moving into position, military commanders receiving suspicious orders, civilian populations being quietly evacuated from potential conflict zones. The scope of the conspiracy was vast, touching every major government and military organization in known space. How long do we have? Lyra Teal asked. Before the consortium launches their coup? 5 weeks, maybe 6, the Admiral replied. Before Earth forces are in position to counter them? 3 weeks. And, if we can't stop them in time? Marcus and the Admiral exchanged a look that somehow conveyed volumes of unspoken communication. It was Jackson who finally answered, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had seen warfare at its worst. Then, we implement contingency protocols that ensure the consortium's plans fail regardless of their initial success, he said quietly. Princess, humans have a very simple approach to existential threats. If we can't save galactic civilization from corruption, we'll burn out the corruption and rebuild from the ashes. The casual way he discussed the potential destruction of galactic civilization made Lyra Teal realize that she had fundamentally misunderstood something about the humans who had promised to protect her. They weren't just willing to fight to preserve the status quo. They were willing to destroy everything if that's what it took to eliminate threats to innocent people. Marcus, she said quietly. When I asked you to keep me safe, I thought I was hiring a bodyguard. What did I actually do? He was quiet for a long moment, and, when he finally answered, his voice was softer than she had ever heard it. You gave Earth government legal justification to do something we've wanted to do for decades, Princess. You let us off the leash. As the Wanderer continued its journey through hyperspace, carrying her toward a destination she still didn't fully understand, Lyra Teal realized that her escape from Nexus Station had triggered something that would reshape the galaxy forever. The question was whether anything recognizable would survive when the humans were finished. And whether that should terrify her or comfort her. The Wanderer dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of a system that wasn't on any galactic navigation charts. Through the observation deck's viewport, Lyra Teal could see a collection of artificial structures that defied easy description, part space station, part shipyard, part fortress. The facility was massive, easily the size of a small moon, and it was clearly designed for military purposes. Welcome to Gibraltar Station, Marcus said, joining her at the viewport. Earth's forward operations base for this sector. I thought humans maintained only defensive installations outside your territory. Technically, Gibraltar Station is a research facility, Kim added with a slight smile. We research methods of protecting galactic trade routes from criminal interference. The approaching docking procedures revealed more about the station's true nature. Military vessels of every size and configuration filled the docking bays, from sleek fighters to massive capital ships that dwarfed anything in the Valtorian fleet. The organization and efficiency of the operations suggested a military force that was not only extensive but highly experienced. How long has this been here? Lyra Teal asked. 15 years, Jackson replied. Ever since the hegemony conflict made it clear that Earth needed forward staging areas to protect our interests. Your interests? Trade routes, primarily. but also the general principle that no single organization should control galactic commerce or politics. Marcus gestured toward the military vessels visible through the viewport. The consortium's activities have been disrupting both for decades. As the Wanderer settled into its assigned berth, Lyratiel could see teams of technicians already moving to service the ship. But these weren't standard maintenance crews, their equipment was too sophisticated, their movements too coordinated. Everything about Gibraltar Station suggested capabilities that went far beyond what Earth had publicly acknowledged. "The galaxy doesn't know you're this powerful," she said suddenly. "The galaxy knows exactly what we want them to know," Marcus corrected. "Earth maintains the appearance of being a regional power with limited interests beyond our own territory. It makes other species more comfortable. And more careless. That too." They disembarked into a receiving area that looked more like a military command center than a civilian facility. Officers and technicians moved with purposeful efficiency, managing data streams from across the galaxy. Wall displays showed tactical information, fleet positions, and what appeared to be real-time intelligence on consortium activities. "Princess Lyratiel," a new voice said, and she turned to see a human woman in Admiral's insignia approaching. "I'm Admiral Sarah Chen, Station Commander. Welcome to Gibraltar." "Chen?" Lyratiel looked between the Admiral and Marcus. "My sister," Marcus explained. "The military side of the family." Admiral Chen led them through corridors that reinforced the impression of a major military installation. They passed briefing rooms where officers planned operations across multiple star systems, armories that contained weapons she couldn't identify, and laboratories where scientists worked on technologies that seemed decades ahead of anything she had seen elsewhere. "The intelligence you provided has been invaluable," Admiral Chen said as they walked. "We've identified consortium assets that had been operating under our radar for years. But it's also confirmed our worst fears about the scope of their infiltration. Which is, they have sleeper agents in every major military organization in the sector. Fleet commanders, intelligence chiefs, even some planetary defense coordinators. When they launch their coup, they'll have inside support at every level." They entered a secure briefing room where several other high-ranking officers were waiting. The tactical displays showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with hundreds of markers indicating known and suspected consortium positions. "Gentlemen, ladies," Admiral Chen said, "Princess Lyratiel of the Valtorian dynasty. The source of our current intelligence windfall." Lyratiel found herself the focus of intense scrutiny from some of the most senior military officers in Earth's forces. Their attention was professional but overwhelming. These were people who planned and executed operations that affected the fate of worlds. "Your Highness," said a colonel whose augmented eyes glowed with the same cold light she had seen in other human military personnel. "The data you provided has revealed the existence of a coordinated campaign to destabilize 17 different star systems simultaneously. The scope is unprecedented in galactic history. Can you stop it?" "We can disrupt it," Admiral Chen replied. "The question is whether we can do so without triggering the larger conflict they're obviously planning." "Larger conflict?" "The consortium's coup is designed to fail," Marcus said grimly. "It's a false flag operation intended to justify massive retaliation against civilian targets. They want to create enough chaos to position themselves as the only source of stability in the sector." The magnitude of the deception was staggering. The consortium wasn't just planning to seize power, they were planning to create the conditions that would make their rule seem necessary. "How many people would die?" Lyratiel asked quietly. "Conservative estimates suggest 50 million casualties in the initial phase," another officer replied. "But the economic disruption and political chaos would affect billions more. Entire worlds could face famine or civil war. And if Earth intervenes? Significantly fewer casualties overall," Admiral Chen said. "But only if we act decisively and completely. Half-hearted measures would simply prolong the conflict." Marcus placed a gentle hand on Lyratiel's shoulder. "Princess, you need to understand something about human military philosophy. We don't fight wars to win points or gain negotiating positions. We fight wars to eliminate threats permanently. What does that mean in practical terms? It means when we identify an organization like the Consortium as an existential threat, we don't try to reform them or contain them, Admiral Chen explained. We dismantle them completely. Every asset, every agent, every financial network, all of it gets destroyed or captured. That sounds like total war, the colonel finished. Yes. But, Princess, understand that the Consortium has already chosen total war. They're planning to overthrow legitimate governments throughout the sector. Our choice is whether to respond to their war on their terms or our own. The briefing room's display shifted to show detailed analysis of Consortium operations. Financial networks that span hundreds of worlds. Military assets hidden within legitimate organizations. Political influence that reached into the highest levels of galactic government. The scope was breathtaking and terrifying. There's something else you need to see, Marcus said, activating a separate display. This is what the Consortium's ultimate goal looks like. The new display showed political maps of the galaxy, but with boundaries that bore no resemblance to current territorial divisions. Vast regions were marked as economic zones under direct Consortium control, while traditional governments were relegated to small client states. They're not planning to influence galactic politics, Lyra Teal said in growing horror. They're planning to replace galactic politics entirely. A corporate oligarchy with themselves as the ruling council, Admiral Chen confirmed. Individual worlds would exist at their sufferance, providing resources and labor for Consortium operations. Any resistance would be met with military force. It would be the end of galactic civilization as we know it. Which is why Earth government has authorized complete military intervention, Marcus said. Princess, the protection we're offering you isn't just about keeping you safe from assassination. It's about preserving the political system that makes your survival meaningful. Through her empathic senses, Lyra Teal could feel the absolute conviction radiating from the human officers around her. They weren't just planning a military operation, they were preparing for what they saw as a holy war against an existential threat to everything they valued. What do you need from me? She asked finally. Full cooperation with our intelligence analysis, Admiral Chen replied. The data you carry is extensive, but we need help understanding the cultural and political context. You knew the key players personally. And, after that? After that, you become a symbol, Marcus said quietly. The legitimate heir to a government destroyed by Consortium ambitions. Living proof of their crimes and the future they're trying to prevent. A symbol of what? Of why this war is necessary, the colonel said bluntly. Human populations don't like aggressive warfare, Princess. They need to understand that what we're planning is defensive action against an unprovoked attack. The political implications were staggering. Lyra Teal wasn't just a witness to Consortium crimes, she was being positioned as the justification for what could become the largest military conflict in galactic history. And, if I refuse to cooperate? The room was quiet for a long moment. It was Admiral Chen who finally answered, her voice carefully neutral. Then, we deliver you safely to any destination you choose and wish you luck dealing with the Consortium's continued efforts to kill you. But, understand, Princess, that the war will happen regardless of your decision. The only question is whether it happens with galactic support or over galactic objections. Marcus turned to face her directly. Princess, I made you a promise to keep you safe. That promise stands no matter what you decide. But, I also made a promise to my species to protect them from existential threats. Those promises aren't contradictory, but they are both absolute. Looking around the briefing room at the assembled military officers, Lyra Teal realized that she was seeing something that other species had only heard rumors about: humans preparing for total war. The calm efficiency, the absolute confidence, the complete lack of doubt about the necessity of what they were planning. When you say you'll dismantle the Consortium completely, she said carefully, what exactly does that mean? It means when we're finished, the organization will cease to exist, Admiral Chen replied. Their leadership will be captured or killed. Their financial networks will be seized or destroyed. Their military assets will be incorporated into legitimate forces or eliminated. Their political influence will be permanently ended. And their agents? Will have the opportunity to surrender and cooperate with transitional authorities, Marcus said. Those who choose to resist will be dealt with according to military necessity. The euphemism was chilling in its implications. Humans didn't just defeat their enemies, they eliminated them so thoroughly that resistance became impossible. Princess, Admiral Chen said gently, we're not asking you to make this decision lightly. Take time to consider what we've told you. But, understand that time is limited. The consortium's timeline is accelerating, and our window for preemptive action is closing. As she was escorted to quarters that were clearly designed for high-value guests, Lyra Teal found herself facing a choice that would determine the fate of galactic civilization. Support Earth's war against the consortium, or watch as the criminals who had murdered her father reshaped the galaxy according to their own twisted vision. The humans had promised to keep her safe. But, as she was learning, their definition of safe extended far beyond her personal survival. They were preparing to make the galaxy itself safe. Whether the galaxy wanted their protection or not. 2 weeks later, Lyra Teal stood in the command center of Gibraltar Station watching humanity go to war. The main display showed the galaxy in real time, with thousands of markers indicating the coordinated deployment of Earth forces across 17 star systems simultaneously. The scale of the operation defied comprehension. It was the largest military action in galactic history, and it was being executed with a precision that spoke of years of careful planning. Phase 1 complete, reported Lieutenant Kim from her position at the intelligence station. All primary consortium command centers are under attack. Resistance has been minimal in most locations. Minimal because they never saw us coming, Admiral Chen observed with satisfaction. 15 years of appearing to be a minor regional power has given us significant tactical advantages. Marcus stood beside Lyra Teal, his attention focused on a subsidiary display that tracked the status of known consortium leadership. Names appeared and disappeared with mechanical regularity as targets were captured or eliminated across the sector. The galaxy is going to be shocked, Lyra Teal said quietly. They had no idea Earth possessed this kind of military capability. They weren't supposed to, Marcus replied. Strategic deception is a fundamental human military doctrine. Let your enemies underestimate you until the moment you reveal your true strength. And, after they know? After they know, the strategic situation changes permanently. Earth will no longer be seen as a minor player in galactic politics. The implications were staggering. Humanity had just revealed itself to be perhaps the most powerful military force in known space, and they had done it while prosecuting what they claimed was a defensive action against criminal conspiracy. The political ramifications would reshape galactic civilization for generations. Incoming priority transmission from Fleet Command, announced the communications officer. Admiral Reeves is requesting conference with Station Command and Princess Lyra Teal. The main display shifted to show the bridge of what was clearly a massive capital ship. Admiral Reeves appeared in the center of the image, with his staff working efficiently in the background. Through the viewports behind him, Lyra Teal could see the debris field that had recently been a consortium military installation. Admiral Chen, Princess, Reeves said without preamble. Phase 2 is proceeding ahead of schedule. Consortium resistance has collapsed in 12 of the 17 target systems. We're now dealing with surrender negotiations rather than active combat. What about the other 5 systems? Admiral Chen asked. 3 are under siege, but the outcome is no longer in doubt. The remaining 2 systems appear to have been abandoned by consortium forces before our arrival. Lyra Teal felt a mix of relief and unease. The speed with which the consortium was collapsing suggested that their power had been more illusory than real, built on intimidation rather than genuine strength. But the ease of Earth's victory also demonstrated capabilities that raised uncomfortable questions about human long-term intentions. Casualties, she asked. Remarkably light, Admiral Reeves replied. Total Earth forces killed in action, 47. Total civilian casualties in target zones, fewer than 200. The consortium's military assets were more limited than our intelligence had suggested. The numbers were almost anticlimactic. The organization that had terrorized the galaxy for decades, that had corrupted governments and assassinated political leaders, had been dismantled in 2 weeks with minimal bloodshed. They were never as powerful as they claimed, Marcus explained. The consortium's strength lay in secrecy and the illusion of invincibility. Once we forced them into open conflict, their actual capabilities were revealed to be quite limited. Then, why was everyone so afraid of them? Because most species lack Earth's institutional memory of dealing with criminal conspiracies, Admiral Chen said. We've been fighting organized crime for centuries. We understand how to dismantle hidden networks and neutralize covert threats. Plus, added Jackson from his position at the tactical station, most species negotiate with criminals. Humans eliminate them. The difference in approach was fundamental and revealing. Where other civilizations sought accommodation or containment, humans pursued total victory. It was an attitude that made them extraordinarily effective against threats like the Consortium, but it also made them potentially dangerous to anyone who opposed them. Admiral Reeves, Lyra Teal said, "What happens to the Consortium territories now?" "Transitional military administration until legitimate governments can be established," he replied. "We're working with the Galactic Council to identify appropriate interim leadership for each affected system." Working with or dictating to? The question hung in the air for a moment, and Lyra Teal could see the human officers exchanging glances that conveyed volumes of unspoken communication. "Princess," Admiral Chen said finally, "Earth government has no interest in administering alien territories. We're a species that values independence and self-determination. But we also have an interest in ensuring that the systems we've liberated don't fall under the control of other criminal organizations. So you'll maintain a military presence." "We'll maintain the ability to intervene if necessary," Marcus corrected. "There's a difference between occupation and deterrence." Through the command center's displays, reports continued to stream in from across the galaxy. Consortium financial networks being dismantled by Earth intelligence teams. Hidden weapons caches being discovered and secured by military units. Political prisoners being released from secret detention facilities that most governments hadn't even known existed. The scope of their operations, Lyra Teal said, watching the data flow. "I knew they were involved in criminal activities, but this was a shadow government that controlled significant portions of galactic commerce and politics," Admiral Reeves said from the main display. "Princess, your father wasn't just investigating criminal corruption. He was uncovering an alternative power structure that had been growing for decades. And now that structure has been destroyed." "Completely," Admiral Chen confirmed. "When humans commit to eliminating a threat, we don't leave loose ends that can regenerate into future problems." The thoroughness of the operation was both impressive and unsettling. Earth forces hadn't just defeated the Consortium, they had erased it from existence. Every asset seized, every agent captured or killed, every financial network dismantled. It was the kind of total victory that other species might consider excessive. "There's something else, Princess," Marcus said, his tone becoming more serious. "Earth government has received formal requests from 17 different star systems asking for ongoing security assistance." "Meaning what?" "Meaning the governments we've helped liberate from Consortium control want Earth military protection against future threats," Admiral Chen explained. "They're offering formal security treaties." The political implications were staggering. In 2 weeks, Earth had gone from being a regional power to the dominant military force in the sector, with multiple governments actively seeking their protection. And Earth's response? "We're evaluating each request individually," Admiral Reeves said diplomatically. "Our primary concern is ensuring galactic stability." Lyra Teal understood the subtext. Earth was being offered the opportunity to build an empire, disguised as a mutual defense network. The question was whether they would accept it. "There's one more thing," Marcus said, turning to face her directly. "The Valtorian Provisional Government has formally requested Earth assistance in rebuilding their planetary defenses." The words hit her like a physical blow. "The Valtorian Provisional Government?" "Your cousin Prince Thalvan has been organizing resistance to Consortium occupation," Admiral Chen explained gently. "With the Consortium eliminated, he's attempting to re-establish legitimate government. But the planetary infrastructure is severely damaged, and they lack the military resources to defend against other opportunistic threats." "My cousin is alive." She felt her 3 hearts racing. "My people survived. Approximately 2 million Voltorians were evacuated to hidden refugee camps before the consortium's final assault, Marcus said. They've been waiting for an opportunity to return home. For the first time in weeks, Lyra Teal felt something approaching hope. Her people had survived, her homeworld could be rebuilt, her father's death might yet be avenged through justice rather than just warfare. What does the provisional government want from Earth? Military protection during the rebuilding process, technological assistance in restoring planetary infrastructure, and long-term security guarantees against future threats, Admiral Chen said. In exchange, they're offering a formal alliance and access to Valtorian trade networks. And they want me to return as the legitimate heir. They want you to choose whether to return, Marcus corrected. Princess, you've been through trauma that would destroy most people. No one expects you to immediately resume political responsibilities. But, even as he said it, Lyra Teal could see the hope in his expression. Earth had just revealed itself as a galactic superpower, but they needed legitimacy for their actions. Having the grateful heir of a liberated government publicly support their intervention would provide exactly the kind of political validation they required. If I return to Valtoria, what happens to your promise to keep me safe? It extends to your homeworld, Marcus said immediately. Princess, when humans make promises about protection, we don't limit them by geography or time. If you're under Earth's protection, you stay under Earth's protection. Even if that means permanent military presence in Valtorian space? Even if that means whatever is necessary to honor our commitments. Looking around the command center at the assembled human officers, Lyra Teal realized that she was witnessing the birth of a new galactic order. Earth had revealed its true power, eliminated a major threat to galactic stability, and positioned itself as the protector of liberated worlds. What they were offering was simple: safety, security, and justice in exchange for alliance and cooperation. Marcus, she said finally, when I asked you to keep me safe, I thought I understood what that meant. But, watching this operation, seeing what humans are capable of when they commit to protecting something, I'm beginning to understand that safety means something very different to your species. How so? Other species seek safety through negotiation, compromise, accommodation. Humans seek safety through elimination of threats. Complete, permanent elimination. Is that a problem for you? Lyra Teal considered the question carefully. The consortium was gone, not defeated, not contained, but completely destroyed. Her people were alive and could rebuild their civilization under Earth's protection. The galaxy was safer, more stable, and more just than it had been in decades. No, she said finally. It's exactly what I needed, even if I didn't realize it at the time. Marcus smiled, and, for the first time since she had met him, the predatory edge was replaced by something approaching warmth. Then, welcome to the new galactic order, Princess. We're going to make sure you stay safe. All of you. As Gibraltar Station continued coordinating the liberation of consortium territories, Lyra Teal realized that her escape from Nexus Station had indeed triggered a war. But it hadn't been the war she had feared. It had been the war the galaxy had needed: swift, decisive, and absolutely final. The humans had kept their promise. She was safe. And so was everyone else, whether they understood it yet or not. In the vast expanse of space, the reign of fear was ending. The age of human protection was beginning. And, for the first time in decades, the galaxy could sleep peacefully, knowing that someone was watching over it who would never negotiate with evil, never compromise with corruption, and never stop hunting threats until they were permanently eliminated. The humans had finally revealed their true nature to the galaxy. And it turned out that what the galaxy had needed all along was not diplomats or negotiators, but guardians who understood that some problems could only be solved through the complete application of overwhelming force. Princess Lyra Teal was safe. And so was everyone else.